When Luke Harris, a hard-working teenager, was unfairly confronted and humiliated by officers in his own neighborhood, it felt like the world was stacked against him. Their rigid suspicion and refusal to treat him with respect turned a normal evening into a test of dignity. But fate intervened in the form of his mother, FBI agent Olivia Harris, who arrived with unwavering authority and changed everything. Get ready to witness how this tense encounter transforms and discover the powerful moment when justice finally prevails. Luke Harris's footsteps echoed softly against the cracked concrete as he moved along familiar streets, a routine but weary walk after practice. In his pocket, his phone played a playlist of mellow hip-hop tracks, a soundtrack that usually helped him unwind after the rush of drills and team huddles. The night air was cool, leaves rustled in gentle currents above, and somewhere in the distance a train horn sounded, comfortingly ordinary. His mind drifted between a tough math assignment and the thrill of winning next weekend's game. Basketball was his anchor, a place where discipline had purpose and the rules were clear. Out here, everything felt safe. He had walked these streets for years, greeted neighbors walking their dogs, and sometimes palmed his basketball in one hand, spinning it for the sheer joy of motion. But tonight, the quiet was heavier than usual, as if the neighborhood itself sensed a coming storm. Up ahead, a sudden burst of sirens shattered the calm. Blinding blue and red lights flashed across his face, causing him to flinch, as a police car quickly pulled over to the curb. Luke's first reaction was confusion. This sort of thing wasn't supposed to happen here. Two officers stepped out briskly, radios humming behind their clipped commands. "Stop right there! Hands up!" came the instruction, imperious, crisp with urgency. Luke's music faded into the background, replaced by the surge of adrenaline that made it hard to move, think, breathe. He drew in a sharp breath and lifted his hands, feeling exposed beneath the harsh streetlights. The older officer, badge glinting, assessed Luke with cold calculation, while his partner scanned the quiet street for threats. Luke's attempts to explain were hesitant. He stammered, "I live right there, honest. I just got out from practice. You can check my backpack." But each word felt smaller than the moment, unable to bridge the gap of distrust. The officer's eyes lingered on him with skepticism, and their postures radiated caution. They directed him to kneel, the command delivered with the assumption of compliance. Luke's knees hit the pavement, rough and cold, as the junior officer swept his backpack aside and began searching through its contents. Inside were nothing more than gym shorts, textbooks, and a half-empty bottle of sports drink. Still, they checked each item as if expecting danger. Luke's heart pounded in his ears. He tried to steady his breathing, glancing at the windows and front doors on either side of the street. Dimly lit shapes watched from behind curtains, some drawn by concern, others by morbid curiosity. No one intervened. The silence of the street was now punctuated by the officer's questions and radio chatter. "Why are you out here so late? Who do you know in this neighborhood?" asked the senior cop. Luke replied, voice barely audible. "My mom works at the bureau. I'm headed home after basketball, sir." He sensed the statement made them hesitate but did not relieve the tension. The officer's focus remained sharp, a barrier that his logic and politeness couldn't breach. Luke's mind scrambled for a calm, grown-up tone. He explained how he had forgotten his geometry notebook at the gym and backtracked to retrieve it. He wondered whether giving every detail would help, or whether each word would only lengthen the ordeal. The surrounding familiarity, the porch where he'd carved pumpkins, the fence he'd leapt on a dare, the mailbox painted with a bright red stripe felt suddenly foreign, as if the world had turned away. As the search continued, Luke's anxiety twisted into a knot. The flashlight swept up and down like the beam was searching for proof of something sinister. With each question he felt more invisible, as if the officers saw not his nerves or his struggle, but only a silhouette figure to be defined by suspicion. He remembered his coach's lectures about dignity, respect, teamwork. None of those skills seemed useful now. His dignity felt battered, the weight of the uniformed gaze stripping away the normalcy of his night. Luke tried to maintain calm, but his thoughts flitted to his mother at work. Her warnings about how to interact with police, the lecture on keeping hands in sight, never making sudden moves, the hope that these lessons would never be needed. Minutes dragged, the tension unrelenting. Luke stayed motionless, senses sharpened, every muscle braced for instruction. His backpack was replaced, but the officers didn't step back. Instead, more radio calls, more questions about his name, his age, his school, his plans for the rest of the evening. The scrutiny made the night feel endless. Luke answered everything patiently, though each response seemed to confirm, rather than dispel, their doubts. The flicker of a video camera strapped to one officer's chest signaled that every second, his hesitant movements, his nervous tone was being recorded. Luke wondered what this footage might look like to someone watching from a distance, someone who didn't know him. Cars passed by slowly, drivers slowing to look, faces illuminated for a moment by the pulsing lights before fading back into the darkness. No one stopped. The world was watching but remained silent. Luke fought the urge to look away, not wanting to seem evasive, not wanting to do anything that might worsen the situation. Eventually, the junior officer closed the backpack and stood back, glancing at his partner for direction. The older officer regarded Luke for another long moment, then asked, "Is anyone coming to get you?" Luke nodded. "My mom is on her way. She should be here soon." That answer finally prompted a discussion between the officers, a brief moment where their professional certainty faltered. Luke remained quiet, dust settling on his clothes, his dignity fragile but intact beneath the scrutiny. The street, his home, his life were unchanged, yet he himself felt marked by the night, a lesson about the unpredictable collision of innocence and assumption, safety and scrutiny. As he waited, Luke tried to remember his mother's voice, the way she always made him feel safe, even on the hardest days. He hoped she would arrive soon. For now, he sat beneath the spinning lights, feeling the world watching and weighing him in a way it never had before. Luke remained kneeling on the pavement, his breath fogging in the night air as the minutes slipped past. The officers had completed their search, yet their posture showed lingering suspicion, a readiness for problems that never appeared. Every so often the senior officer's gaze would flicker toward Luke's face, as though searching for any sign of wrongdoing or defiance. The quiet of the block had slowly given way to murmurs. From the safety of their homes, neighbors watched through windows, some whispering anxiously, others unsure whether to act or simply bear witness. Luke felt each unseen set of eyes like a spotlight, their concern mingling with hesitation. He tried to shrink under the weight of attention, wishing the encounter would dissolve, that he could simply melt back into the shadows. As he waited, he replayed the interactions in his mind, what he said, how he moved, the tone of the officer's questions. He wondered why politeness and honesty seemed to deepen suspicion, not dispel it. The knowledge stung, and left him exposed in a way he'd never experienced. Time blurred into strange stretches, and his thoughts drifted from moments on the basketball court to memories of his mother's advice on how to handle situations like this. Stay calm, be respectful, keep your hands visible. Luke began to shiver, not from the cold, but from uncertainty. The officer's flashlight had long since moved away from his eyes, but its glare lingered in his memory. He stared at the ground, tracing patterns in the cracks beneath his shoes, trying to block out the feeling of being judged and found wanting. Occasionally, the junior officer asked more questions, small things about his life, his school, what he wanted to study. The routine inquiries felt out of place, searching for meaning where there was none. There was a moment when Luke thought he saw sympathy flicker in the younger officer's eyes, almost as if he recognized the difficulty of the situation. But professionalism quickly masked emotion, and procedure resumed. Luke's dignity felt fragile, stretched thin by the attention he couldn't escape. Even as he answered questions, the world felt impossibly distant. No laughter drifted from porches, no greeting from neighbors out walking their dogs. The sense of home was replaced by discomfort and exposure, turning familiar streets into an arena of silent judgment. The distant sound of a car approaching sparked a glimmer of hope in Luke, a sign that the night's ordeal might soon end. Until then, he remained a figure caught in the harsh spotlight of uncertainty, longing for comfort that felt just out of reach. The stillness that had settled over the block fractured the moment Olivia Harris arrived. Her silver sedan rolled to a calm stop, headlights cutting through the darkness and painting sharp lines across the pavement. Olivia stepped onto the curb, her presence quietly commanding. There was no hesitation in the way she moved, as if she belonged not only to this moment, but to every moment where someone's safety needed to be restored. Her suit was perfectly pressed, her shoulders set with the certainty born of years on duty, and her eyes, unblinking, determined took in the entire scene within seconds. Luke felt a complicated surge of emotion. Relief slowly climbed over the anxiety that had taken root during the long, uncertain wait. Yet in the presence of his mother, he also remembered the lessons she taught him: composure, dignity, clarity. Olivia's expression was neither panicked nor angry, but intensely focused. She walked directly to the gathered officers, her steps measured and unwavering. Without raising her voice, Olivia asked, "Please explain why my son is being detained." The request was clear, respectful, but infused with a steeliness that made the officers reevaluate their stance. The older officer, who up to now had directed the encounter, found himself searching for an adequate answer. Protocol suddenly felt irrelevant in the face of federal authority. He cleared his throat, explained informal phrases about their patrol and safety checks, but his voice was faltering. Olivia listened, but her attention was fixed on the underlying intent. She withdrew her badge in one fluid motion, allowing the flashing lights to catch the silver insignia. FBI Special Agent. The younger officer blinked, momentarily thrown off his routine, then glanced uncertainly at his partner. Olivia remained calm, her professionalism unshakable, her posture one of a person used to resolving tensions, not with force, but with facts. A subtle shift rippled through the scene. The officer's authority, which had radiated throughout Luke's ordeal, began to give way, not to confrontation, but to accountability. Olivia, embodying composure and command, collected the facts methodically. She took out her phone, documenting the officers' names, ID numbers, and time of incident. No hint of intimidation or aggression colored her actions. Instead, it was the calm discipline of someone who knew how to protect not only a loved one, but the dignity of an institution. She knelt beside Luke, placing a gentle hand upon his shoulder. "You're all right now," she said, voice low, a reassurance designed not only for him, but for everyone present. Luke exhaled, tension melting as he met his mother's steady gaze. Olivia guided him off the cold pavement, helping him rise. In that simple gesture she reclaimed every ounce of dignity that had been tested during the incident. Facing the officers, Olivia spoke with deliberate clarity. "My son is returning home from school activities. There is nothing about his presence here that merits suspicion. I request documentation of your actions tonight, and I will be contacting the department for a review." Her words were precise, her expectations clear. People began to step out of their homes, drawn by the quiet determination Olivia displayed. Some neighbors nodded, others offered sympathetic glances. The atmosphere on the block shifted noticeably as it became clear that Luke was not alone, and that his family possessed both the authority and the knowledge to seek answers. Olivia had broken the invisible barrier that often renders a witness powerless. She had brought process and accountability to the very edge of their street. The senior officer adjusted his stance, conceding the moment to Olivia. He apologized, citing misunderstanding and procedure. Olivia accepted the apology, but made it clear that the apology was only the beginning, not the end, of restitution. The younger officer, seemingly uncomfortable with the encounter, offered a quiet assurance that the incident would be noted. Olivia's actions were more than parental, they were transformative. Through her measured resolve, she shifted the officer's approach from suspicion to accountability. She inspired confidence not only in her son, but in those who watched. Her steady composure reminded everyone present of a deeper truth, that authority, when paired with justice, is meant to protect, not intimidate. After the officers left, Olivia wrapped Luke's jacket around him, her embrace a barrier against the uncertainty that had pervaded the night. Together they walked back home, footsteps finally light. Olivia spoke softly as they went, reinforcing her promise that Luke's dignity was always worth defending, that his presence in their neighborhood was not to be questioned, but valued. The impact of that night lingered long after the flashing lights faded. Neighbors talked among themselves, the story weaving through conversations, a testament to the difference one person with resolve and authority can make. For Luke, his mother's courage became a lesson deeper than any classroom or basketball court one about the power of calm intervention and the importance of never standing alone. In the aftermath, Olivia reported the details, setting in motion protocols she had guided countless others through in her career. For Luke, comfort slowly returned, supported by the knowledge that together they had reshaped the narrative of the night, not with anger or fear, but with assurance, dignity, and a quiet insistence on fairness. The air outside was finally settling, the tension of the evening giving way to a gentle quiet that seemed almost fragile after all that had happened. As Olivia guided Luke up the steps to their front door, the world felt changed, less predictable, but somehow also more connected. Inside, familiar details brought comfort. Shoes lined up in the hallway, the scent of candles Olivia always lit on cool nights, the steady ticking of the kitchen clock. Luke sank into a chair at the dining table, his backpack slouched beside him. Olivia moved around the kitchen, her movements precise and reassuring. She made tea without ceremony, pouring boiling water over fragrant leaves, letting the simple ritual comfort them both. The warmth of home stood in sharp relief to the cold uncertainty outside. Their conversation was quiet, but full. Olivia spoke softly, explaining exactly how she had handled the encounter, how important it was that Luke remained respectful and clear, and why she immediately documented every detail for the record. She described calling the local department, lodging a formal inquiry, not out of anger, but because it was their right and responsibility to seek accountability. She wanted Luke to see not only her strength, but the strength in process, in following through with integrity even when emotions ran high. Luke listened, gradually letting go of the nervous energy that had kept him alert for so long. He shared his own thoughts, how strange it had been to feel both vulnerable and protected at the same time, how the weight of neighbors' attention lingered, and how it felt to be seen as a threat instead of a teenager. Olivia nodded, her empathy unwavering, affirming every feeling without judgment. The evening stretched on. Other family members called to check in, offering comfort and advice. Olivia answered calmly, her composure contagious. Sometimes she stepped aside to take notes, describing the officer's actions in detail. She explained to Luke why transparency mattered, how documentation could protect others in the future and bring about change. Out the window, Luke watched porch lights flicker on and off across the street. He sensed that the neighborhood had been shaken by what happened. Some residents were likely discussing the incident right now, while others reflected quietly on what they had seen. Olivia reminded Luke that sharing their experience, if and when they chose, could help others understand, empathize, and create a stronger sense of community. Before bed, Olivia paused in his room. She reassured Luke one last time. "You belong here. Never doubt that." She hugged him tightly. The fear didn't fully disappear, but it was diminished balance by the certainty of his family's support. Moments later, as the house quieted and Luke drifted toward sleep, Olivia sat up late, composing a thoughtful email to the local department and connecting with community leaders about what had happened. She wanted to ensure not just a resolution for tonight, but a lasting improvement for tomorrow's families. The hours that followed were tender and restorative. Luke's heart was still heavy, but now layered with hope and trust. Olivia, steadfast and unwavering, knew the battle for dignity and justice was both personal and communal. The story of their night would become a lesson, not just about adversity, but about the healing power of coming home, being believed, and standing firm in the face of suspicion. In the soft darkness, the house hummed with the quiet promise that whatever the world might bring, it would always be a haven, a place where fairness was not just defended, but built every day.